5b, graphing fractions. Okay, we've done graphing on a number line. Now we're just going to look at graphing fractions, which really works pretty much the same way that other graphing did. So let's start with a number line. Okay, so I've got my number line, and let's get some numbers, or fractions in this case, that we're going to graph. So I'm just going to put up a set of fractions. We have 3/4, -1/2, 2 1/8, and -4 1/3. So there we go. So we got 4 fractions that I want to graph on this number line. Now this works the same as it did with whole numbers and integers, right? I've got my little tick marks here, my indices. I numbered them every 2, 2, 4, 6, then 2, then 4, then 4, then 6, now we're at 8. You can see that that easily fits all of my values. Remember, you always start from 0 and work your way out to either side. So 0 to positive numbers, 0 to negative numbers. Where it becomes important with this is just as it was with decimals and negative decimals, is remember that since you're starting from the center and working your way out, if you had -2 point something, you'd get to -2 and keep going to the left. You don't start at -2 and then go to the right. So anytime you have a negative value, you're going and increasing as you go to the left. So -2 point something or -2 and something will keep going that way, not -2 and then working your way to the right. Otherwise, you're making it -1 and something. So that's going to be the biggest thing to pay attention to. So we're just going to start here. Well, 3/4. Well, if we think about 3/4, that's less than 1, right? We've got 3 pieces out of the 4 that would make a whole. So that's got to be somewhere in this range. And we can actually break that up into pieces. 4 pieces, so can't I split that up into smaller pieces? And so we've got 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, right? 4/4 would be 1. So 3/4, 1, 2, 3, and there we go, 3/4. -1/2, well 1/2's between 0 and 1, right? It's less than 1, but it's negative, so I'm going this way, so that means I'm just going to break it into 2 pieces. Well, that's 1 out of 2 pieces, so -1/2. So let me put these here, just so that we can, so that's 3/4, -1/2. 2 1/8. So wow, when we get to 2, we're going to get to 2, and then we got a portion of this that's going to get broken into 8 pieces. Well, I can break that into 2 pieces, 4 pieces, 8 pieces. So 2 1/8 puts me right about there. So that's 2 1/8. And then -4 1/3, I'm going this way. I get to -4, I'm going to keep going that way. I need to break this into 3 pieces. -4 1/3. -4 1/3. So that's plotting those points. Most common mistake that people will make is this -4 1/3. They'll come -4 and try to put it right there, which is, look at that. Not correct. That's not correct. Can't do that. Okay? It's -4 1/3. Remember that when you're dealing with mixed numbers, that a sign in front of it affects both the whole part and the fractional part. That's not -4 and a positive 1/3. That's negative 4 1/3. So that's our biggest thing to keep in mind, because that's the most likely mistake that people will make. So that's dealing with a number line. Well, what if we want to do a bar graph dealing with fractions? Now, let's say we want to we'll have the name of people, and then we'll have the number of miles that they cover in 30 minutes. So the number of miles that they cover in 30 minutes. Now I'm assuming on foot. Okay, so let's say we got Bob, Joe, Mike, and Andy. Bob, Joe, Mike, and Andy. And obviously, they're not going to cover necessarily whole mile amounts. There's going to be partial miles in here. So Bob covers 3 3/4 miles. Joe covers 4 1/2 miles. Mike covers 5 1/3 miles. And Andy covers 3 4/5 miles. Okay, in their 30 minutes. I don't know if they're walking, crawling, or what, but they're going on foot. I guess, or on knee if they're crawling. And I want to create a bar graph from that. Works exactly the same as it did when doing regular bar graphs, except now we've got these fractional parts to it, kind of like on the number line. That just means we're going to go this portion farther than the whole part. So we're going to have miles covered here, and we've got up to 5 miles and 1/3, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Give myself enough to cover that. I'm going to put their names across the bottom. I'm going to be late. Well, I'll do it. Bob, Joe, Mike, and Andy. And all we're going to do is we're going to create bars, just as we did in our regular bar graphs, and up to the proper level. So we got Bob was 3 3/4. So Bob goes 3, right? 3. But we need to go 3/4 of the way up to 4, so 3, a little less than that. So Bob is 3/4. Joe, 4 1/2. So we're going to go all the way up to 4, and then we need to go halfway between 4 and 5. Mike, 5 1/3, all the way up to 5, and then 1/3 of the way up to 6. Andy, 3 4/5. So he's going to go up to 3, and then 4/5 of the way to 4, and 4/5. And 4/5. And if we look at those, we can see that 3 3/4 for that first one, you can basically break it into the pieces here. So it's a quarter of the way there. Wants to smear on me, right? So we break into the fourths. There's 3, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fourths. So we want 3/4, and that essentially matches up with there. With 4 1/2. You have the starting point, the ending point, and the halfway part. So we can just break the pieces up the exact same way we did with a number line, except now we're using the vertical axis as that number line, and we're just creating our bars. So graphing fractions really isn't much different than graphing integers, and it's almost identical to graphing fractions. Not fractions, decimals. Because graphing fractions, of course, is identical to graphing fractions. But it's essentially the same thing as graphing decimals.